We are live in Corpus Christi. You got 124 people on. Let me know if you're here, everybody. We got a hello, Denise. Alex here. She's running away.
Yeah.
We are live. Greetings. Yo. Hello from Norway.
Wow. Okay.
Rag Kong, all the way from Norway.
He might be able to pronounce some of our names.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. How's the audio? Are we coming through okay? Let me know. We got Sweden, Chicago, another Sweden. Oh, shit, we got a lot of people coming in. New Jersey. I was going to say Norway, but it's New Jersey. Okay, we sound good. All right, so we're good? All right. We got a lot of comments coming in here.
Cool.
So, the fine folks from Schiit Audio, I'll actually say it this time, asked me to come down and do a meetup. And I was very excited because there's a new product that's very interesting, pretty a departure from what you have been doing.
Yes.
So amongst everyone watching, would love to know a little bit more about the SYN.
SYN.
SYN. S-Y-N, not S-I-N.
Yes.
Yeah.
S-Y-N. All right. If you don't want SYN, maybe it's sign. After doing, hell, I'm wondering if we should kill that whole idea and maybe call it sign. But for now, it's SYN.
SYN.
Yeah, it's a departure. And yet it's not so much. If you know my history with Mike Moffat and everything, he had a surround company in the early 90s called Angstrom, and they did the first upgradable Dolby Pro Logic processor.
Okay.
And then they did the first DTS and Dolby digital processor. And this is back in an era when people were using laser discs.
Okay.
If anyone remembers those, because it feels like I'm like old man now. So
no, I remember laser discs.
Yeah.
It was cool. You could blind an aircraft with one of those things.
Yeah, and especially when the high quality ones were 30 minutes per side. So
right.
you're just getting into it. It's like, I got to get up and
Tombstone. You got to flip it over.
It's horrible. It was horrible. But that got me into surround. So I've actually had I hate to call it a home theater. It's more like a media room.
Okay.
Pretty much since the early 90s. And I've gone through the whole upgrade thing, including repulling HDMI cables a billion times, changing with the new standards, going up, every time HDMI decided to change, every time the standards change.
Yeah.
And it's fine. There's some terrific stuff you can do with that. I'm not here to say this is the new thing. This is another thing. This is an alternate reality that we're creating here. But anyway, I went with that for a long time. One day I came home to the California house from Texas, went to boot up the processor, it wouldn't boot. Okay. So after I realized it really wouldn't boot, I'm like, okay, that's fine. We'll go back to stereo.
Yeah.
I went back to stereo for the media room. And it was okay, stereo is actually not that bad. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, you're looking at a flat screen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not enveloped in everything.
Yeah.
So you could argue that if it's too precise, it might take you out of the immersion, right?
Okay, yeah.
You know what else takes you out of the immersion with stereo? Is when you move off center and, suddenly all the sound is from one speaker.
Yeah.
So there's a reason surround exists. But I decided at that moment, I'm like, hey, maybe I'll do that cheap, simple surround thing that I've always thought about. It's just an analog processor. And long story short, we did a prototype of it that was fairly bad, and we learned some of the downsides to Matrix. Most pointed of which is how do you actually get a proper balance between the center and the mains?
Yeah.
And so we're going, you could subtract L plus R from mains. That'll help. So that's a different control. That's what we call width here. Yeah. But you can also add it.
Yeah.
And when I realized you could add it, I'm like, hey, this is also a headphone thing too, because it's like crossfeed, especially if you put some frequency shaping in there. Yeah. And so we have now a frequency shaped, monoing, but it's only active when you actually have the headphone in.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
So you have surround, you have headphone. It's a preamp, it's a DAC, it's a dessert topping, it's a floor wax.
Yeah.
To use that.
Well, that was going to be one of my points here. Is like, so I've had it for, I don't know, maybe a week or 10 days, and I was telling Jason earlier that, this is not the review, obviously, but it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife of hi-fi, because you do have a DAC, you do have a preamp if you want it, so you have an analog input, you have surround if you want it, and it's not going to be, Atmos, but
No.
It's definitely interesting because it's so interesting that I was watching it with my daughter, and there's some stuff coming out of the back speakers, and I thought, how did they do that? And so that was a question I had for Jason. He's like, how did you get rid of the dialogue? And so anyway, it's a very interesting product. Do you want to say, how long have you been in development with this?
Couple years. Because it went from an analog only super simple product to, we added digital, we added the extra controls, we changed the matrix a bunch. We did a lot of work on it. And I love it because people say, oh, you voiced it, like the high end, you voice a product.
Right.
And I'm like, no. We listened to it, and then we said, it's really hard to isolate the center. So what do we have to do that? But this is like the stuff that's not really kind of measurements. It's more like you have to sit and listen to it and play with it and see what's the best way to do it. Or the shouty dialogue problem.
Yes.
We put in a presence control because a lot of stuff is mixed very forward, and I said, well, we should be able to pull it back.
It does have a mic input, right?
It does have a mic input as well. It can be used for gaming. It's probably not its primary function, but it does have a mic input. So if you're using a gaming headset, you can use a splitter. And I've already, people already yelled at me where the mic input is. It's like far away from the headphone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it's better than the original position, which was on the back.
Or not having one.
Yeah, or not having one.
Could you ask Jason when the shiny new CD transport's coming in? I think
hopefully 60 days.
60 days.
Yeah. We have photography of it now, so we must have to do it, right? It exists. We have photos.
Right.
Just waiting for boards.
Very cool.
Yeah.
30-year-old. How much? Do you know what Can I ask how much it is? Or no?
I think it's $12.99. It's not cheap because it's more of a digital hub / CD transport.
Okay.
Because you actually have USB ins.
Okay.
So there's 2 USB ins, there's USB out, and there's SPDIF out. So it's a D to D as well as CD transport.
Okay. 30-year-old Infinity Micro 2 with passive sub.
Yeah.
Still the best. Hold on. I'm going to. Know what I'm saying? Yes. I know what you're saying. All right. Let's see. Bubblehead. Loves how his comments lasted that long. Hey, Kevin Gardner. Awesome setting for a live stream. It is. All right. How is Schiit doing these days? Supply chain, ?
Supply chain's better. Still a mess. Probably some people probably noticed that we're out of stock on a couple of multi-bit DACs. It's just because it's hard getting DACs right now. Ironically, we have the DSPs that we've been chasing. Now we need the DACs themselves. So it's, supply chain's much better. Sales are softer. I think any audio company that says it's like the glory days of, when everyone was locked in their house and given free money.
Right.
They're dreaming. But, it just means that we went back to, essentially back to trend. We were growing kind of like before COVID, and then there was COVID, and now we're kind of like back to trend.
Yeah.
So it's fine. We run very conservatively. So, if we need to hunker down a bit, it's not a big deal.
Got some Pepsi product placement. Yeah. Now, it's legit what they had here.
There you go.
This is Diet Dr. Pepper, actually. So I don't think Dr. Pepper's on that Pepsi.
Yeah, they just put in an actual drink bar there, soft drink bar.
They want to know what kind of beer you're drinking.
Oh, I'm drinking the one of their gozas. It's a champagne goza, which is actually quite good if you like salty sour beers.
Salty sour.
Yeah, so
beers.
About half your audience probably just threw up.
Would you consider it savory?
Not really.
I don't even know what I'm talking about. I don't know what savory is. Status of URD, please.
That's the CD transport.
Oh,
yeah. So we're moving along as fast as we can.
All right. All right. I do terrible with the names of your products because like one of my favorite products is the Lear headphone.
Yeah.
But I also had the Tier monoblocks.
I know.
Speaking of,
we got Sis and Sin.
Yes, and I screwed them up already. Speaking of the,
we had an internal revolt too because we had a product coming up that I'm like, oh, the perfect name for it is Ganunga Gap. I actually put the name on the product and everything, and Tyler's like, no, we are not going to release a product called that. Yeah.
I have to call it the G-Horn. But going back to the tiers, can you explain what a choke amp is?
Choke input. So choke input power supply. It refers to the power supply.
Okay.
Most amps, if they're using an old school linear power supply, they'll have a transformer and then this big bank of capacitors, and that's what serves as the filter for the transformer. In Tier's case, we have a transformer. We have a choke as big as the transformer that is the first, basically it's the first bank of filtering before the filter caps. It's another way to filter and store energy. And my theory is because it stores energy differently than a cap, it's a different way to do it. It sounds different. So a lot of people seem to like it. I like it. I don't like the fact that 2 tiers is over 100 pounds. But,
they're not light. I dropped a Vidar on my knee the other night, by the way.
Yeah, it's fairly horrible.
Yeah.
With the sharp heat sinks or the later ones with the rounded ones?
It was rounded. It still got me good, though. All right. That's another question. All right. Loving the G-Horn and, Wrecker?
Wrecker, yeah.
Okay, and a Wrecker. How did these come about? So what's the history of the G-Horn and the Wrecker?
It's almost like everything else. I mean, I swear, I just, the story of Sin is something broke, so I made something to replace it. I got tired of powered monitors on my desktop, specifically hissing.
Okay.
I got really tired of that because it seems like most of them do, and it seems to increase over time, or I get dehabituated to it, and it bothers me. So I'm like, I need a totally dead silent, like desktop powering. So I made something that looked kind of like a Wrecker.
Okay.
And I had been messing around with a larger desktop power amp at the same time, and that's Yallerhorn. So they actually morphed a bit from desktop to like small systems, because if you have efficient enough speakers, you can get away with it. The demo we're actually doing here, we have a full surround, setup with Sin here. It's all Wreckers in this loud room. Right. And it will actually be okay. But that's because we're using some Klipsch speakers that are very efficient.
Highly efficient.
Yeah.
Klipsch. I have a question. Head amp in Sin ? Is it good? Is it as good as a Heretic or the Magnet?
It's actually, I think it's better than Heretic because it is discrete. It is the highest performance discrete headphone stage we've done. It measures almost up to the Heretic standard, but it is actually discrete parts. So, but it is a voltage feedback design, which is more similar to the old Magni 2 Uber than anything else. But that's the main line stage, and the main headphone stage is discrete. Everything else is, the surround channels and stuff are done with op amps.
I wish that guy would quit rolling around, because that's coming through loud and clear on here. So, getting back to the Heretic, did you know that there's a song by Slipknot called the Heretic Anthem?
No, I didn't.
Spectacular.
So I have to listen to that on the Heretic.
Yes.
Or on the Piety.
That's right. Yes. The Heretic Anthem should be listened to on the Piety. Gunger EOL, waiting on parts. Deets, please.
Goodyear, yeah.
Goodyear.
That's our middle deck. Right now we don't have enough parts even to do really Iggy and Bifrost. So yeah, Goodyear is on hold. I don't know how it's going to come back, or when it's going to come back, or if it's going to come back. There's internal debate because we have three really bad choices. One is we bring it back. One is we don't bring it back. That's a bad choice because it's a nice form factor. You know, it stacks with a lot of stuff we do. Another is we bring it back exactly the same way it was, which means it is now out of this fully upgradable thing by yourself that we've been able to do with Bifrost and Iggy. Or we bring it back in kind of like the Bifrost, what we call autonomy form, meaning it has, you know, SD cards and stuff so you can upgrade it yourself.
Yeah.
But then that leaves, you know, that actually is now a break between the past and the future. So if you have an old Goodyear, you're going to yell at us and say, well, you said it was upgradable. It's like, yes, it's upgradable to a point.
Yeah.
Just like everything else. So we're still discussing that. We don't have dates. Nothing's going to happen before 2024. That's for sure.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. Got Movie Junkie John saying, speaking of Laserdisc on a good tube TV still reminds me more of a 35 millimeter film in theater than any other format. Not sure why. Do you know that people that are like into vintage gaming, like so old tube TVs are like now selling for like a mint
for vintage gaming?
Yeah, for vintage.
I believe it. I believe it. Well, Tyler and I have arguments over his OLED stuff all the time. Because he's like OLED and I'm like projector. And he's like OLED and I'm projector. And he's like, OLED has perfect blacks. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't look natural. And he's like, well, you're used to what movies look like in the old days. And so you are basically, you know, you have been programmed that movies look a certain way, that are kind of gray and they're jittery and stuff like that.
Jittery.
Yeah, well, you know, they're low frame rate.
Yeah.
And he's like, I like OLED with all the smoothing and stuff turned on. And I'm like, ooh.
No, we don't do smoothing. No,
it's gnarly.
No, it looks like a soap opera.
That's really weird. Yeah. He had it turned on here, and I said,
I noticed it right away,
it
and I was like,
turn it off.
People actually like that.
I asked him if it has a setting to make it look like an LCD, and he just got irritated.
Well, you go to a movie and it doesn't look all smooth and gross. It's 24 frames, baby.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so you are saying
24. Well, that's There's a reason why movies are shot in 24 frames. And did you know that it was actually because of money? Because that was the lowest frame rate that they could get and still look okay.
Yeah, it looked kind of smooth.
Yeah. I just found that really interesting. Can we use an external DAC to the SIN?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's got analog in.
It's got one analog in. So what you
could use a $50,000 unobtainium tube DAC, DAC into it. And then the main channels won't be messed with. You can just add the surround channels.
Very nice.
If you want to do truly insane surround,
there you go.
Yeah.
So it's really cool because, for my purposes, I could totally get away with just a SIN because I usually run a DAC, and that's my digital switcher. But it has a DAC in there, and then I run like a phono preamp, and then I'm done. So.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, the headphone output in SIN came about largely because I was doing a lot of dev late at night, and my wife would yell at me, would you turn the damn thing down? I'm like, well, I'll just add a headphone out.
Jason, turn it down.
Yep, exactly.
All right. Let's find some question. I'm just gonna pick one out of the sky.
Cool.
All right, that's the one we just. Okay. Is there a high pass for the main with the sub? You said sun. I think you're saying sub.
Yeah, there's no high pass.
There's no filtering of any kind, is there?
There's filtering on the surrounds.
Okay.
There's a low pass filtering on the surrounds just because there is sometimes some high frequency cred in there. So we have it's like 7K or something on the surrounds. But there's no low pass on this because we didn't really see a lot of use for it in a system that actually has decent sized speakers.
Mm-hmm.
I understand if you want to use small speakers. This is just not really for that. This is more for decent sized stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, this is not meant to like replace receivers or a processor. This is something I think else. I mean, it's kind of apples and oranges.
Yeah, and I really think that it's funny. Everyone asks, or a lot of people ask about low pass, and I'm like, I understand why you want that, but have you tried it without that? Because I think we've been programmed. It's like, well, if it's not like 6 feet tall and weighs 800 pounds, you want to have low pass on it to get maximum volume. And it's really funny because a lot of people are doing the mantra of maximum volume. It's like, so you live in a 5,000 square foot house with a dedicated home theater, that's 1,000 square feet itself.
Yeah, we all have those.
So you need that, right? And he's like, no, I live in an apartment. I'm like, okay, cool. You're a normal person. I understand that. So maximum volume? And he's like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we went for maximum quality, and so we had to decide on some things we left off. We left off, the optional filtering, and we left off the ability to say like tweak on the subwoofer. It's kind of a fixed 0.1 type, output at 80 hertz.
Okay.
So, if that doesn't work, you could always run full range off the mains, to a sub, and then tweak on the sub.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
All right. Would you ever make a big sin?
I'd love to have one. I would love to have big sin, and if this goes well, I'm sure you'll see something that's balanced in and out and fully discrete and all the crazy stuff we do.
Old tube TV selling for a mint. I've seen no evidence of that. Maybe not. I used to try to give them away. It was so heavy though that
I know,
people wouldn't even take it. No, people legit would not take it.
I know. I remember my first theater setup was like a 36-inch tube TV. Horrible thing to move around.
Yeah, I had a gray Sony One Flat, one of the first flat screens.
Yep.
I mean, it was about this
Yeah, mine
deep.
was Sony.
Yeah. Had to weigh 200 pounds. I mean, I think the box by itself was like 30 pounds.
Yeah.
I took it out.
Yeah, Mike had one of the old projector setups where you did the line doublers and had little CRTs.
Yeah.
For project. Yeah.
That's what the CRT TVs are the ones that are selling from.
Yeah.
All right. YSBH says, make a streamer a good one. There you go.
I'd love to.
I don't think Jason had ever thought about that before.
Yeah.
Had you?
I'd love to. It's just a question of focus. Plus, streamer, that's going to get us into the app world, and if we get there, I want to do it. Not just rationally. I want to staff to it because I mean, as soon as you start having apps, you're a software company, whether you want to be or not.
Yeah.
So won't rule it out, but streamers are not our bag right now.
Yeah, you mentioned that before.
Yeah.
Will this do surround emulation on 2 speakers? I think I know.
No,
that. Yeah.
actually, that's not its thing.
Yeah.
It's basically allows you to do surround from anything. The example I like to give is you have a 1958 stereo recording on a record.
Yeah.
It will decode ambiance from that. May not want the center in that case, but you might want the ambiance.
Yeah.
Or you can plug it into Netflix and do the whole fun thing.
Yeah, and you were telling me that this is not new technology. Like
it's ancient.
Yeah.
I mean the essentially matrix surround, Dolby took that and then applied their own tweaks to it, which became Dolby Pro Logic, which was steering. They would actually actively steer it. If you had something going on over here, they would increase the gain over here and decrease the gain on the other channels. That's what you call, that's their Pro Logic. And that can sound really good. If it's done right, it can sound really good. The problem is that you really want to implement it probably in digital at that point, because voltage controlled amplifiers, at least the ones I know how to make, where you actually do analog steering, to borrow a phrase from Mike, sound like ass. They really sound horrible. So I wanted to not do that, and I wanted to not do a lot of things have delays, and it's like, this is not about making your room sound like a stadium. It's about recreating the natural ambiance that's in a good recording.
Yeah.
And so the problem is, of course, you hook it up to like Netflix or HBO or whatever, and you get a really well recorded movie,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to sound fantastic. It sounds fantastic on like The Expanse and Dune and all the stuff where they paid some attention to sound.
Yeah.
And then you'll watch Forged in Fire, and it's like, well, but their sound budget on that show is probably like $5.
Yeah, I mean, you can say the same thing about any recorded music, though. Some stuff's recorded better than others.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this, so I've been playing around with it, and I haven't done the video, obviously, because, well, I couldn't, but it's pretty neat. And I think somebody that's not into home theater, like way far down, if you just want something to be a bit more immersive, or not even a bit, a lot more immersive, it's something really cool. And it's also cool that you don't have to chase the latest and greatest Atmos license, all this stuff. And it's kind of like, it's like a sound bar to the nth degree, because it's got the convenience of a sound bar and really none of the drawbacks of like a receiver with all the craziness. So it's really interesting. Is it completely accurate to what they? Who knows? Maybe that's the same thing. Is a tube amp accurate to what was recorded? Probably.
Yeah. Well, I think we are moving into we're moving away from even in audiophilia. It's kind of like we're moving into this space where it's like we were on like it must be accurate. It must be the 100%, the artist's intent, the original source. And it's like, well, it's good to know that, I think. But if it sounds horrible in your system, why would you endure that?
Yeah.
Why don't you fix that?
I'm with you. Listen, I love the fact that you guys make EQs and make no apologies about it.
Yeah.
All right, we have Lag Master Speen.
Mm-hmm.
Can you walk through your thoughts or thinking behind the Ragnarok? I would like to buy one for my 2-channel, and I'm stoked for a good balanced XLR headphone out.
Yeah. No, Ragnarok's a fantastic thing. I had one on my desk for a long time, even though it's huge. It's really our do all product that doesn't do surround, but it'll do it'll do speakers, headphones, balance in, balance out, the whole 9 yards. That's the one product when people are like, I want to get 2 Vidars, and I want to get either a Saga or Freya, or they want a whole stack. I'm like, why don't you just get a Ragnarok? It's got plenty of power, has headphone stuff built in. You don't have 8,000 boxes and cables and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's my thinking, and I think it's an underappreciated amp, actually. If I was going to do essentially one box, that's what I'd do.
I like it. There you go. Mike S., is there a new Phono Stage in the works?
There's always stuff in the works. I did ask people for some input on a above Manny headphone stage. Phono Stage. Nothing's been finished yet. We're actually showing a tube phono here, but it's an old Mike Moffat / Dave design.
Okay.
And that could happen, but I think if I was going to do something that was a step up from Manny, it wouldn't be that big a step up. It would be, let's make a Manny that's convenient, maybe has balanced I/O, etc., and is discreet. Something like that. I think you could probably assume that will happen. It will happen eventually, but I don't know if eventually means 2024 or later.
Yeah, that's eventually.
Yeah.
Okay, so no simulation with just headphones. Yeah, you can do like crossfeed, right? Stuff.
Yeah. What the headphone thing? It's funny. I've never really engaged with like simulated surround on headphones. I'd much rather it be more like 2-channel. So what we're doing is going the opposite direction, which is crossfeed. We're selectively mixing so that essentially the headphone image moves out in front of you, and it works. It works pretty well. I think the ultimate testament to it is when you actually turn it off, the headphones do sound really weird in that moment. So yeah, I like it, but we don't do the virtual surround.
All right. What's Mike up to? P194 says.
Mike is up to working on a completely insane thing for high end.
Okay.
No, it's not a DAC above the Iggy. That's basically all I can say about it. Iggy's still our top deck. And then he's dealing with all of our supply chain stuff that still exists, because every week I go to him and say, so the DAC 8812s, we're not getting those. So do you want to maybe redesign everything for something else? And he's like, I think he's at the point where he wants to kill me. And I'm like, I get it, dude. But, it's like either finish Singularity, which is our own, Delta Sigma approach, or we may need some options on the multi-bit DAC side.
Okay. Yeah. Changing gears, headphone recommendation for the folk Wagner.
It's hard to do specifics just because someone from the headphone community will get really irritated at me, but shoot for either high impedance or high efficiency, or both if you can find them. I know Sennheiser and Bayer Dynamic both do 300 and 600 ohm headphones respectively. Those are always good matches. There's a new intriguing 380 ohm headphone from FiO that I haven't checked out yet. I would look at that. Shockingly, Grados do very well, even though they're 32 ohm, but they're so efficient that they will blow your head off with no power. So you can get away with some shocking stuff. Stay away from planers. Stay away from power hungry stuff. HE6s, no, very very bad idea. Some of the more efficient hi-fi man planers though are just kind of almost barely in that range.
Yeah, I had a tube amp, and I tried to put the hi-fi man edition XS on there. Nope.
Yeah,
it wasn't yours. It was somebody else's tube amp, but I just noticed that they were spectacularly terrible.
Well, I think it's important to say too, it won't break it. It's just that it won't work well.
Yeah. Azure 2 on the way.
Oh, I hope so someday. It's the thing is, we always have something on the way. We're always working on something. I'd love to figure out a way to make Azure, more powerful, more flexible, more interesting, and not lose the character it has. But haven't got there yet.
All right, let's go from Facebook. So I have my 2-channel with Azure and bookshelves and sub. What would you add to make 3.1 with center channel and an amp, right?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, you could throw a Yaller horn or even a wrecker in there, and any center channel that works with the speakers he's got.
There you go.
So,
there you go. And go ahead.
Unless it's a super inefficient, bookshelf or something. Yeah. But
there is some so I know a lot of people don't like to do surrounds because they don't have the room for it. It's not wired or whatever.
Right.
But there's actually some Bluetooth modules that you can hook up, and then the little amp will be back there. And it's not like you need the highest quality amplification for the rears.
Right.
Bluetooth a little Class D back there, and hook up some speakers.
Yeah, you can absolutely do that. And honestly, I came within probably a couple minutes of just saying, instead of doing wreckers here, just bring some JBL 305s or something, and plug it into the SIN and call it a day. But we did wreckers because everyone here is kind of we make the wreckers here in Corpus, so they're like, oh, we have to use our amps. I'm like, that's fine.
All right, another Facebook question. Good afternoon. Any news concerning the Soul? I tried to get one, but they were gone.
Yep, they are gone, and they're not coming back. Unfortunately.
All right. There you go. All right. Much like the Vidar 2, will there be an improved Tier 2?
No. Tier is pretty much, it is what it is. And it's brand new, so no real need for it.
Is there going to be a lighter one? Just kidding.
I wish. Yeah, we'll do a Class D tier.
Are you ever going to do a Class D?
If we can get it the sound the way we want it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't rule it out, but I don't think it's on the horizon, because a lot of people ask us this, and I said, you guys do understand. We've taken Class D beyond the state of the art. We've done 3 megahertz switching GAN Class D prototypes. And it's they're meh. So we're not doing it. Maybe someone else can make it sound fantastic, but it's not our bag. So maybe when it's 30 megahertz.
Is there going to be an FM tuner in the Urge?
Oh, no. Does anyone listen to radio anymore?
Yeah, Emotiva still puts them in there.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
not as a separate unit, though, right?
No. There is an option to listen to radio on a lot of this stuff.
Wow, that's sorry.
So I have a car that has wireless AirPlay, and it's kind of like HDMI. Oftentimes, it just doesn't work.
Yep.
And it defaults down to the radio. And I am truly amazed every time an FM radio station comes in just how terrible it sounds. And that's in a car with 60 dB of road noise. Like I can hear how bad the signal is in a car. So
I've heard some fantastic FM back in the day.
Yeah, probably late at night when they had more.
Yeah, and from very high-end tuners. But I don't know. I think the time's passed.
So I think we've already answered this question, or you have. Alexander 26, as a minimalist, do you have an all-in-one integrated amp DAC headphone?
We do. It's called Ragnarok. Problem is it's gigantic. The closest you could actually take pretty much any one of our headphone amp modular products, which would be Asgard or Jotunheim, because Lear 3 has not become modular. You can take Asgard or Jotunheim, stack it on a Yallerhorn, and achieve that.
Somebody wants an SACD player for under 800. You can get that. Like, go get a Sony Ultra Blu-ray. They'll play SACDs.
Yeah.
I don't know how good it will sound. There's a good question here. Where would it? It was about running a Phantom Center. Oh, here we go. I might have missed this. Can the Sin do Phantom Center if you don't have room for center speaker? Right. Well, yes, it can. Right.
Yeah, you don't plug in the center.
You don't plug in the center. Yeah.
Yeah, you can. It won't. Essentially, it won't subtract, the center channel content from the mains unless you want it to. So.
Yeah, and there's.
Yeah, and in fact, if you want to actually make the center more present in the mains, you can actually dial down the width rather than dial up the width.
Yeah. Can you show them on the camera?
Yeah.
So
it actually has, let's see.
There you go.
As a number of these are just center and surround level. This is actually presence. It controls the 2K band, so makes it more or less shouty. But this is width. Width, you can actually go wider or narrower. Narrower is typically where you go on headphones. Wider is typically where you go if you're trying to, isolate a center channel. If you wouldn't have a center, you would go probably narrower. And then that would actually probably work pretty well. I didn't try that. I need to try that because I have one setup that it's a real pain to get a center in there.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Let's see. Any possibility of setting up the Corpus Christi location for visitors to come demo equipment?
We're discussing a shitter in Texas, but I suspect it would be either more San Antonio or Austin area. But then we would actually have a showroom.
All right. I think I got to answer this one. Any HDMI inputs in the future?
Hopefully not. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if things get so bad that there is no optical out, I'd consider an HDMI endpoint where it's like we're not about passing this through. It's just we will take the audio, but you actually need to send it on. The problem with HDMI is it's typically not an endpoint. It's a pass-through. So you have to support all of the standards, whether that's 8K and 360 hertz. I exaggerate slightly, but you have to support all the standards if you want all the standards to work.
Yeah, we were talking before this about how many HDMI cables we've had to throw away. I actually cut them now. So if I pull one out, I cut it so I don't ever reuse it because I would invariably have a drawer full of HDMI cables, none of which worked, and I would drive myself crazy.
Yep.
Ryan Schmitty wants to know how's the beer?
Beer's good, actually. Noesis does a good job.
Let's see. Shit in Canada? Question mark.
That's actually a great question. It'll take a lot longer to answer. What I'd love to do is actually have a better way to get into Canada. Right now, it's pretty much all direct.
All through Detroit.
No,
that's a joke.
Yeah, but I remember the Ontario thing. It's all direct, and that's probably the best we can do at the moment.
All right.
Yeah.
Cut the cables too. All right. Somebody was asking, do you do tours in Valencia?
No, not typically, but we do have the retail store. We have the shitter in Valencia, so you can listen to everything.
Let's see. You got anything else to add?
No, it's been a heck of a ride. I'm glad that this is out. Hopefully, have a couple more surprises this year, but we're really concentrating on getting the CD, transport / visual hub.
How long have you guys been teasing that CD transport?
8,000 years or more.
8,000 years.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
It's probably, honestly, 3 years late.
3 years. Okay.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Okay.
We have now stopped talking about stuff that's that far out.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah. It's like in Hollywood. If something isn't getting developed anymore, you just kind of stop talking about it. Hope everybody forgets.
Yeah. Honestly, there's a bunch of exciting stuff coming, but unlike Erd, we're not talking about it.
Okay.
The old rule used to be that if we don't make it, we can talk about it. That's a bad rule, because Mike and Dave are like, Erd's done. This is probably 2019. I'm like, this is fantastic. We'll start talking about it. No, it was very much not done. Not even a little bit done. So never trust the engineers, including me. And the people who know me, I say, oh, it'll be out in May. And they're like, oh, so August?
Shit preamp DAC with DRAC Live.
No, I don't think room correction is our bag.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. That's a no. The Sin reminds me of the Black Ice Audio FOZ SSX soundstage expander. I actually have one of those, so that'll be cool to kind of compare them.
Huh.
So you remember back on
was that an actual? It did kind of virtual expansion.
Yeah, kind of like on the 70s receivers and stuff like that.
You could do it with this, but I wouldn't do it without a center.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Any plans for Ragnarok 3 or mini Ragnarok?
Oh, I'd love to do a mini Ragnarok. I'd love to, now that we have Yellerhorn, the only catch is it's a different form factor. And you think, oh, who cares?
Everybody will care.
But no, packaging cares.
Oh,
because we have to stock a whole new set of packaging.
Yeah.
So it's believe me, I'd love to do a mini Ragnarok. I'd love to do a little, 20 or 30 watt baby rag.
I was wondering, because you guys do a lot of 16 volt 1 amp power supplies. And I was like, well, it makes sense. If you're going to make a bunch of stuff, use one power supply.
But the problem with the mini Ragnarok is it won't run off the bat. It's going to need a toroid, and it would probably have to be like a 9x12 form factor, which we don't make yet.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe someday.
All right. One more, and then we're probably going to... Is aluminum hard to fix, manufacture, or just darn expensive?
All, but mainly manufacture. We did a bunch of aluminum tops to be, to give you some background. We just did a bunch of aluminum tops. We ordered 250, to say 500, black tops. And he called us up, our metal supplier called us up and said, well, the 250 is zero. And it's like, what does that mean? And he's like, well, I got, he puts them in individual plastic bags to send them to the anodizer so that they don't get scratched. Well, the new batch of plastic bags had a bunch of grit embedded in them.
Oh.
And so they came out with scratches. So you can't anodize that. So spray them all black. We're still trying to work out the aluminum thing. And if we're lucky, we can like go to a robotic bead blasting and then a anodizing process here. The catch is that will look slightly different, just like aluminum always looks. So if you want stuff to match and be perfect, black. And if you like natural finish aluminum, well, cross your fingers and hope it doesn't get more expensive.
Simon Hackshaw, longtime patron, awesome person. Says thanks for your time, effort, and great info. All the best to you. We had another one. Oh, speaking of, all right.
Mjolnir?
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're lucky, June, July. Yeah, June's what we're shooting for. Okay. So everyone who knows me will say, "Oh, September." But I do think it's June, July.
June, July.
Yeah, we have it here. It's here somewhere.
What are your impressions of the new Modi Plus? You must hate it, right?
It's horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Actually, I do like Modi Plus. It's honestly, it's a little bit of a step up from the DAC and the Sin, but it's the same class. It does sound a little bit better though. Honestly, I like Modi Multibit, but then again, I like Bailey as well. So I have like little, stupidly expensive stack with a Modi Multibit and a Bailey rather than Magni Modi.
Yeah. You ever gonna do black sides instead of gray? Probably not. You can spray paint it.
It'd be black bottom. Yeah. At that point, we've discussed changing finish. It's just now it's tough, just because there's so much stuff out there.
All right, I can get behind this question 100%. Will you put meters into your amps and preamps?
Actually, I think it's a fantastic idea to put meters in. Like if we do a tier 2,
yeah,
like at that class, let's do something really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know about the rest of it.
What about an EQ with like the old school 80s LEDs?
The bar chart.
Yeah. Just food for thought.
That might be cool.
All right. I think we're gonna call it. You have anything to add, or you want to shout out? So right now,
thanks for listening to my blather as usual. So
well, it's available right now, right? The Sin right now. You can go to the website.
Sin's available right now, and
order it up.
Yeah, Wrecker and Yallerhorn are available. They're doing much better than I expected. I figured people would kind of look at us and go, "Low-powered amps, what's wrong with you?" But
I've gotten more question about the G-Horn than probably any other product since it was released. Like, when are you going to do the? And I have a pair of them. I've been listening to them for weeks now. I've gotten that question more than I think any other question after a product's been released. So there's a lot of interest in it.
Yeah, those will be out of stock very soon.
There you go.
So we're making more though.
If you want a G-Horn, get on it. Well, I appreciate you all joining us. Over 500 people are in here at once, which is amazing. Appreciate the fine folks from Schiit having me down to the beautiful Corpus Christi, and y'all have a great week. So we will bid you farewell. So go check out the Sin. All right, bye.